Here's something you don't see every day, an all-new Range Rover. And that's because in the last 50 years there's been just 4 previous generations. Well, this is the 5th. Let's go and check it out. So the all-new Range Rover is due to arrive in Aussie showrooms in around June 2022, and it will be priced from around $200,000, which is a considerable $20,000 bump in the wrong direction. Let's have a look at it. Some things to consider about this car is it looks awfully similar to the 10-year-old model that it replaces, doesn't it? But in the flesh, it does look quite different. It's designed under this reductive mantra. So that means, what does that mean? That means basically, if you look at some of the side of the car, it's a lot smoother, it's a lot simpler, it's supposed to be more elegant and sophisticated, but it's up to you. But some nice bits actually from this design is, I do like this really smooth sort of velar approach to the front grille. This is really nice as well, this sort of raised belt line here that sort of looks like it just goes on forever and it doesn't have nasty sort of rubber finishing or even chrome. Under the bonnet you have the choice of a 375 kilowatt 6-cylinder plug-in hybrid, and the important thing about that is it's actually going to be quite relevant to Australian buyers because it has a really decent pure electric range of around 113 kilometres. So they're saying that for your daily commute, Monday to Friday, you probably only have to charge it once, and it can be topped up quite quickly as well because it can be plugged into a 50 kilowatt fast charger DC. It takes about an hour. More exciting is it gets a twin turbo 4.4 litre V8 BMW engine that produces 390 kilowatts, and that's the version we have here, and it's pretty quick. And it sounds good too, so we don't really miss the old supercharged AJ 5 litre. There's also going to be the Ingenium 3 litre, both a petrol and a diesel, and the most relevant is probably going to be the diesel versions, isn't it? Because it's going to have a nice big range, loads of torque. But that has 2 versions, one with 221 kilowatts and 650 newton meters of torque, and there's another more powerful one with 268 kilowatts and 700 newton meters of torque. So they're probably the most relevant, and they also get 48 volt mild hybrid tech. We've got to show you what's happened inside. Inside the cabin, again, you will not mistake this car for the old version. It has this really nice curved 13.1 PV Pro entertainment system, and usefully you also get this second controller down here. So you've got your ventilation control separate, which is really nice because it means you don't have to toggle through menus. It's got the 12.3 inch digital instrument cluster, but just the design, the fit, the finish, the nice materials that's used in here, it really does feel, well, it feels like a closer than ever rival to things like the Mercedes S-Class. And then you've got this raised driving position. I mean, you do feel like $1 million behind the wheel of one of these. And that's probably quite relevant because I think Land Rover is sort of pitching this now at things like more like the Bentley Bentayga. So that's why the prices have risen, because inside you can just see it does feel a cut above the old model for quality. So in the back of the Range Rover, yeah, there's more space here. Again, material, fit and finish is exemplary. It's also got a 75mm longer wheelbase, and that means you have a little bit more knee room, a little bit more leg room. And yeah, it's a very pleasant place to spend time. But if this is not enough space, there's also a long wheelbase version that has an extra 200mm between the wheelbase, and yeah, that feels like a mini limo. You can really stretch back, and it has the sort of airline seats. And also SV will do you a 4-seat version, which is just really opulent. The long wheelbase will also be offered with 7 seats as well, so it really has turned into quite the luxury family car for those very wealthy buyers. Anyway, have a look at this, because it has the beloved split tailgate, and these really are quite useful because you can sit in them like this and, I don't know, watch horse racing, whatever rich people do. Interestingly, for this one, it's actually shorter, and that's what helps people just about reach the back of the boot. So this is sort of one of the touches of the Range Rover that, I don't know, real people have fed back on. I don't know how this bloody thing works. Anyway, it works. It's nice, it's elegant, it's sophisticated. It's a Range Rover. So what's it like behind the wheel of the 5th generation Range Rover? Well, it's pretty damn fine. And that's because, well, Land Rover haven't been tempted to make a sports SUV out of it. They've really focused on doing the luxury thing. Now, under the bonnet of the Range Rover, the new BMW V8 produces 390 kilowatts and 750 newton meters of torque. And that provides for an exceedingly brisk 4.6 second sprint to 100 kilometers per hour. And it even sounds good too. Now we're driving along at the moment in the comfort mode, and boy is it comfortable on these US roads. It really does have this pillowy soft action, and at sometimes it can actually feel a little bit undamped, which worries me a bit. So we'll have to reserve judgment properly until we get it onto our horrible roads. But for where I'm sitting now, it's supremely comfortable. The other thing Land Rover claims is it has created the world's quietest SUV. And indeed, it is pretty silent in here. And it even has these trick headrests here that have these speakers in that basically create white noise and cancel out all the nastiness. But it does mean that you can actually start hearing things that perhaps you wouldn't have had normally. So we do hear quite a lot of wind noise around this A-pillar here that could be these huge wing mirrors. But you know what, it's nothing intrusive, and if you lived with one of these, you'd be quite happy. All versions of the new Range Rover come equipped with the ZF-sourced 8-speed automatic, and it's, as usual, pretty impressive. But we did notice in the diesel version particularly that it could throw in a few duff changes every now and then, particularly at low speed, which kind of upset the sort of the refined feel. But it wasn't all the time, and it could be fixed by an over-the-air update. Land Rover claims the all-new 5th generation Range Rover is all new, and that's because it's based on the car maker's MLA Flex architecture. Now this new architecture should save Land Rover a lot of weight because 80% of it is made out of aluminium, but the Range Rover is still a heavyweight. The version we're driving now tips the scales at 2.8 tons. Despite the mass it carries around though, it's far more nimble than it should be. And that's because Land Rover has added rear wheel steering. Now the rear steer pivots the rear wheels by around 7.3% and adds agility at high speed, but better manoeuvrability in town. In the city, this thing is supposed to have a turning circle equivalent to a Volkswagen Golf. Of course, the new Range Rover will not be cheap. The long-wheelbase autobiography version with the V8 we're driving now costs $304,500. And that's before you've added some of the most ludicrous options. I mean, if you want to personalise this car and make it your own, you can really fill your boots. The icy white paint on his car costs $20,550. And there's a really nice hot stone massage thing that's going on at the moment. $16,000. 16! Perhaps the most radical thing Land Rover has done with the new 5th generation Range Rover is, well, it's just kept in its lane. It's kept steadfastly focused on the luxury thing. This is not a sporting SUV. And that's all the better for it because, like the 2012 Range Rover it replaces, this car will leap to the very top of the luxury SUV car segment.